My name's Lena Brooks. I'm 36 years old and I've learned the hard way that silence doesn't mean weakness. Last Sunday, I went to my parents' house for one of those classic family dinners. You know the type, everyone's smiling just a little too wide, pretending everything's fine while knives twist under the table. The second I walked in, Mom was already in full performance mode. Oh, Melissa's trip to Italy was just divine, she said, pouring wine like we were filming a reality show. They stayed at that five-star villa in Tuscany. You know, the one with the infinity pool and private chef. She didn't even say hello to me. Melissa, my older sister by 2 years, beamed from across the table. Perfect teeth, perfect tan, perfect hair, all paid for by someone else's credit card, no doubt. And she just got a brand new Range Rover Mom added loud enough for the neighbors to hear. Cream leather interior heated seats. Fully loaded. I chewed my salad slowly, keeping my face neutral. I'd been here before, same praise to different brand. But then came the cherry on top. Mom leaned in, her tone syrupy sweet, the way people talk, right before they say something offensive. Lena, honey, you're so smart with money. Maybe you could help Melissa with a little loan thing she's dealing with. Nothing big, just Cosign. Maybe she said it like it was no big deal, like she was asking me to pass the salt. The room went silent. Even the clinking silverware stopped. Uncle Wayne, my dad's brother, raised an eyebrow over his glass of bourbon. He didn't say anything, not yet, but the look said enough. Melissa smirked. Dad stared at his plate like it might solve world hunger. Mom just kept smiling, like she hadn't just asked me to risk my financial future for the family favorite. And me, I stayed calm. I didn't answer, but I felt it, that heat rising in my chest. They had no idea what was coming next. I didn't say a word that night, but inside something cracked open. And when it did, all the memories came rushing back. See, growing up in Fort Collins, Colorado, our house looked picture perfect from the outside. Nice lawn, 2-story colonial, bike rides in the cul-de-sac, but inside it was always the Melissa show. I was the reliable one, the quiet one, the one they didn't have to worry about. At least that's what they told themselves. I won my first science fair in 4th grade, built a working water filtration system out of recycled plastic. I came home clutching my ribbon, excited, buzzing with pride. Mom barely looked up from her phone. "That's nice, honey," she mumbled. 2 days later, Melissa got featured in a local ad for a teen clothing store. Full hair and makeup. Mom printed the photo, framed it, and mailed it to every relative we had. I got a pat on the head. That was just the beginning. Middle school, I got straight A's, skipped a math level, and landed a scholarship to a STEM summer camp. Melissa tried out for cheerleading and didn't even make the team, but somehow Mom still posted about how resilient she was and took her out for mani-pedis. By high school, it was no longer a surprise. I took AP classes, interned at a local engineering firm, made honor roll every semester. Melissa failed her sophomore year and transferred to a private school, and guess who dipped into her college fund to cover it? Not that anyone asked me. I remember sitting at the dinner table one night, trying to tell Dad about a national robotics competition I'd been accepted into. Before I could even finish my sentence, Mom cut in to talk about Melissa's upcoming photo shoot with a lifestyle blogger who, let's be honest, had maybe 12 followers. Dad just nodded along, didn't even notice the look on my face. He never spoke up, never disagreed with Mom. He played the part, smiled, passed, the salt stayed out of the fire. But I noticed. And the silence. It burned more than words ever could. By the time I hit 18, I'd learned something important. If I wanted to be seen, I had to stop waiting for them to do it. So I stopped trying, stopped announcing my wins, stopped asking for their approval. Instead, I planned. In silence. And that silence, it became my sharpest tool. So at 18, I left. No big family goodbye. No tearful send-off. Just me, a duffel bag, and a one-way bus ticket out of Fort Collins. I landed a job waitressing at this greasy diner off the interstate. Long hours, aching feet, and tips that barely covered rent. But it was mine. And after years of feeling invisible, even that struggle felt like freedom. I'd work nights, crash in a shared apartment, then wake up early to study online business courses on my cracked laptop. Every spare dollar went toward learning something accounting logistics negotiation. Things no one in my family ever thought I'd need. They thought I'd burn out. They didn't know I was just getting started. 2 years later, I met Trish sharp as a knife, funny as hell, and just as fed up with being underestimated. We were both working warehouse gigs on the side when we started kicking around an idea. What if we built something better? Fast forward a decade, and that idea, it became Blue Ridge Logistics, a regional shipping platform that now services 5 states, moves tens of thousands of packages a week, and handles fulfillment for brands Melissa brags about on Instagram. She doesn't know that. Of course, no one in my family does. They don't know I live in a quiet loft with exposed brick and floor-to-ceiling windows. They don't know I drive a 10-year-old hybrid I bought in cash. They don't know I've built a private portfolio of industrial properties, warehouses, shipping hubs, distribution centers, all generating passive income like clockwork. And they definitely don't know I angel invest in women-owned startups across the Midwest. But one person does. Uncle Wayne. He found out by accident when I ran into him at a business conference in Denver. We were both stunned him seeing me on stage as a guest speaker. Me realizing someone in the family finally saw me without filters. We got drinks after. He didn't say much, just raised his glass and said, "Proud of you, kid. Quiet power's the deadliest kind." And he was right. I don't wear my net worth. I don't need a fancy badge or a loud mouth. I built everything they told me I wasn't good enough for, and I did it while they weren't even looking, because I wasn't after their applause. I was building something bigger, something they couldn't ignore forever. So I sat there, wine glass in hand, trying to breathe through the growing tension at that table. Melissa still swirling her drink like she was in some luxury brunch. I'd let out this little laugh, the fake kind, and said, "Well, we've hit a tiny bump in the road." Tiny bump. She was talking about being 3 months behind on her car payment, late on her private club dues, and underwater on a lease for a condo she couldn't afford in the first place. But of course, she dressed it up like a cute little inconvenience. "I mean, it's just temporary," she said. "Everyone's had a rough year." Her phone buzzed on the table. She flipped it face down without even checking. It buzzed again. Uncle Wayne raised an eyebrow. That a debt collector or just an aggressive admirer? The entire table froze. Melissa didn't laugh. She didn't say anything. The silence was thicker than the gravy Mom had proudly overcooked. And then it happened. Mom put her fork down, gently folded her napkin like she was about to announce a cruise, and said, "Lena, sweetheart, since you're so financially savvy, we were thinking maybe you could co-sign Melissa's new loan. Just something short-term, until she's back on her feet." I stared at her. She said it like she was offering me a cookie, like signing on to tens of thousands of dollars in debt for someone else was just casual. Melissa looked at me wide-eyed, fake humble, like this was some generous opportunity for me to prove how close we were. Dad still silent, still slicing his roast like it was a distraction from the fact that his oldest daughter was drowning and his wife was asking the other one to jump in after her. I set my wine glass down carefully. Didn't flinch, didn't blink. But inside, my heart was pounding so loud I could barely hear my own breath. It wasn't just the ask. It was the assumption. They really thought I'd just nod, sign the papers, and go right back to being the quiet, reliable daughter who never caused trouble. They had no idea who they were sitting across from. Not anymore. I took a deep breath, looked Melissa straight in the eye, and said calmly, "Melissa, that designer life you're always bragging about, the skincare brand, the packaging, the influencer launch party in Denver, I funded that." You could have heard a pin drop. Mom froze, fork midair. Dad stopped chewing. Melissa blinked like she didn't understand the words I'd just spoken. I was the anonymous investor behind your skincare company. I said, my voice steady. I poured 50 grand into it. Silent partner? You know, the one who never got a thank you. Melissa's mouth fell open. I didn't wait for her to speak. And when you ran that business into the ground in under 18 months, overstocked inventory, unpaid suppliers canceled orders, I quietly absorbed the loss. No drama, no lectures. I just wrote it off. Because I knew you weren't built for it. She tried to interrupt. I raised my hand. She froze. But here's the twist, I said. Those debt collectors who keep calling you, the ones chasing you for unpaid invoices, I leaned forward just a little. I bought a portion of that debt portfolio last month. Mom dropped her fork. It hit her plate with a sharp clink, the kind that slices through every conversation in the room. Dad paled. I mean visibly paled. Like he'd just watched someone get hit by a truck. Melissa stared at me, stunned. Her lips parted. You're lying. I didn't flinch. No, I'm not. I bought the debt. Dirt cheap, too. Thanks to your lovely credit history. She blinked. Twice. No one's gonna come banging down your door, I added. But just know, next time your phone rings, that's me calling. She looked like she might pass out. Mom was frozen, jaw-tight eyes darting between us like she'd just realized the house was on fire. And Dad, he didn't say a word, didn't need to, because for the first time ever, they realized the quiet one at the table was the one holding all the cards. I didn't raise my voice. Didn't need to. Instead, I pulled my phone from my purse, unlocked it, and tapped open a folder I'd titled a long time ago, just in case. I looked up at Melissa. Her arms were crossed, jaw tight, but her eyes were already flickering with panic. I scrolled once, twice. Then, I began to read. February 12th, for $300, transfer to cover inventory costs. March 9th, $200 to your packaging vendor when they threatened to sue. April 3rd, $1,700 for your emergency rebrand after you got dragged on Instagram. All from my business account. All under your LLC. I tilted the phone so everyone could see the line items. Melissa said nothing. Dad looked like he was staring at a ghost. Mom opened her mouth like she wanted to object, but no words came out. I kept going. These, I said, flipping through screenshots, are your business cash flow statements from the second quarter. Negative, $6,500 by June. No incoming revenue after July. And here, I pulled up a PDF. Here's a copy of your credit report. Maxed out at Macy's, Nordstrom, American Express, and somehow a furniture store in Aspen. Uncle Wayne let out a low whistle, then muttered under his breath, "Holy hell." I didn't smile, didn't smirk. I just looked across the table and asked, calm as ever, and you still want me to co-sign a loan for her? The silence after that. It wasn't awkward. It was surgical. Because in that moment, every single person at that table realized I didn't just show up prepared, I showed up with receipts. That silence. It didn't last long, because just as I expected, Mom snapped. She slammed her napkin on the table like I'd just insulted the Pope and spat out, "How dare you ambush your sister like this? She's had it harder than you ever did. You've always been cold, Lena. Always judging." Her voice cracked halfway through the word judging, but she kept going. You think money makes you better? You think just because you hide behind spreadsheets and bank accounts, you have the right to humiliate your sister at the dinner table. I didn't flinch. But I felt my jaw tighten. Melissa folded her arms clearly, waiting for someone to defend her again. But this time, something shifted. Robert. My father, the man who'd spent my entire life sitting quietly in the background, finally lifted his head and said, almost too calmly, "No, Diane, she hasn't had it harder." The entire table turned to him. He didn't shout. He didn't raise his voice. He just kept talking. Lena's built an empire, quietly, privately, while we've coddled Melissa into adulthood. She's been bailing her out from behind the scenes, and we didn't even notice. Mom blinked, visibly stunned. Dad kept going. She's never asked for anything from us. Not once. And yet we keep expecting her to clean up the mess. Melissa shoved her chair back. Loud. Dramatic. She grabbed her purse and stormed down the hallway without saying a word. Right on cue, her phone buzzed on the table. Again. Third missed call in less than 15 minutes. Uncle Wayne leaned back, arms crossed, and muttered just loud enough for the table to hear, "Well, they're persistent." Mom's eyes started to water. But not out of sadness, out of pride cracking, out of years of delusion unraveling. "I can't believe you all are ganging up on me," she said, her voice suddenly small. I looked at her. This woman who spent years pretending my wins were invisible, and my sister's mediocrity was brilliance. And I said, "I'm not your safety net." She looked like she didn't know what that even meant, but I did. I meant that I was done patching holes in a sinking ship I didn't even help build. I meant that being the strong one doesn't mean being the used one. And I meant that for the first time in my life. I wasn't going to clean up their mess. I didn't stay for dessert, didn't offer a polite goodbye, didn't wait for one either. I pushed my chair back, picked up my purse, and walked out of that house without looking back. And for the first time in years, I felt light. Not happy, not triumphant, but free. When I got home, I poured myself a glass of water and sat on the edge of my bed, staring out at the city lights. That apartment, small, simple, quiet, had never felt more like mine. I opened my phone. Melissa's number stared back at me from the call log. Missed calls, old texts, fake sisterly emojis. I held my thumb there for a second, then hit delete. No hesitation, no second guess. Gone. Next, I checked my email. There it was, a quiet little update from the bank confirmation of foreclosure proceedings on Melissa's apartment. The final nail. She'd over-leveraged herself so badly there was no saving it. And I wasn't going to try. A few minutes later, the texts started coming in. First from Mom. One after another, blowing up my screen. "How could you humiliate your sister like that? You're being selfish. She needed you. Not once did she ask how I felt. Not once did she acknowledge what I'd done." Then came Dad's text. Just one. "You were right, I'm sorry." I stared at it for a long time. The first time I'd ever seen those words from him. And I didn't reply, because I wasn't ready for apologies. I didn't need closure from them. I needed space. Space to breathe. Space to protect what I'd built. Space to remind myself that walking away doesn't make you cruel. Sometimes it just means you finally chose yourself. A few weeks later, I stood in front of a small room at the downtown community center. Not in a boardroom, not on a stage, but exactly where I wanted to be. Behind me, a banner read, "The Brooks Women's Fund." It wasn't flashy, but it was mine. A foundation built to support women in logistics, skilled trades, and small businesswomen who were overlooked, underfunded, and underestimated, just like I had been. Our first grant. It went to a single mom launching her own courier service, a one-woman operation, with nothing but a van, a dream and grit in her voice. When she accepted the check, she cried. And for the first time in a long time, so did I. Trish was there. She hugged me so tight I nearly dropped my clipboard. Uncle Wayne showed up in full support arms, crossed head nodding, no words needed. And in that moment, I thought back to that dinner table. The awkward silence, the raised voices, the begging eyes. They wanted me to be the fallback plan, the cushion, the backup, the silent fixer. But I became something else entirely. I became the blueprint. And here's the part they'll never understand. I didn't build all this to prove a point. I built it because I could. Because I knew what it felt like to be dismissed, and I never wanted another woman to feel like her worth had to be loud to be real. So I said no. And that no, it changed everything. Because I didn't just say no, I became the reason they'll never ask again. Thanks for listening to my story. Now I want to hear yours. Have you ever been treated like the backup plan? Ever had to draw a line and choose yourself? Drop your story in the comments below. We read every single one. And don't forget to like, subscribe, and turn on notifications. Our channel drops new drama stories every day.